In the first 10 verses of Luke chapter 15, we find 3 parables used symbolically to depict one of the main themes of Luke's gospel, and that is God's love for his lost children, and also the joy that he experiences when they come home. The immediate context is found in verses 1 and 2. We see that Jesus was speaking to a mixed crowd. There were tax collectors and sinners gathered around Jesus. And there were also Pharisees and teachers of the law of Moses listening to the things that he had to say as well. These religious leaders criticized Jesus for associating with these people. Not only did he welcome them, he ate with them. And the religious leaders just were appalled. They could not accept this. To eat with tax collectors and sinners was even worse because it implied acceptance of their practices. The religious leaders would not have shared a meal with these people, and their comments were filled with great contempt for Jesus. It must have been this attitude of the religious leaders that prompted Jesus to deliver these parables. The first of these is called the parable of the lost sheep. And like all of Jesus' parables, the story comes from everyday life. 100 sheep was the size of a flock of a fairly well-to-do farmer. Sheep were of great value, and any good shepherd would be certain to look after his sheep, especially if one was lost. The other sheep were safe and sound, and so he goes out to find that one that was lost. When he found the sheep, he put it on his shoulders and he carried it back home. There is some symbolism of God as a shepherd to his people in the Old Testament. We read of this in Psalm 28 and verse 9, Isaiah 40, verse 11, Jeremiah 31, 10 through 20, and Ezekiel 34, 11 through 16. Even the Jewish leaders would have recognized this connection, but they certainly would have never applied it to tax collectors and to sinners. The religious leaders would accept a penitent person back, but they would have most definitely not sought out someone that was a sinful person. The idea of rejoicing in heaven over a sinner who repents rather than those who are righteous was one that was foreign to these leaders' thinking. Obviously, Jesus did not think as they did. And in this story, he's given us special insights into God's nature. The second of these stories told by Jesus is the parable of the lost coin. And the meaning of this parable is very similar to the parable of the lost sheep, but it's different in some other ways. The coin would probably have been a denarius and worth approximately a day's wages for a worker. Houses at that time often lacked windows and were dark inside even in the daytime. The floor would have been packed earth covered with dry reeds or with rushes. And finding a small coin in this situation may not have been very easy, so the woman looked diligently for it. It's kind of like what we say today with trying to find a needle in a haystack. It was simply not something that was easy to be accomplished. Well, as she searched for this coin, she finally found it. And she was so happy that she found this coin that she went out and she told everyone in her neighborhood all about it. Well, like the previous parable, Jesus used the woman's experience and her joy in finding the lost coin to compare with the joy that is in heaven over a sinner who repents. And friends, the message to us today is the same. That when there is someone who has been living a life devoted to sin, and they turn away from their old way of life, and they come into a position of faithful obedience to God, there is great rejoicing in heaven. All of the heavenly hosts are there. They see the things that are taking place, and they rejoice in that wonderful decision that that person has made to obey the gospel and to become a servant of Jesus Christ. Friends, we want to thank you for joining us for our program today. We pray that you will consider these things that we have discussed, and that God will bless you with a wonderful day.